In 2004, we learned that we had to change the name of our show from Avatar to Avatar: The Last Airbender because James Cameron already had the rights to a movie called Avatar. Now, the sequel is called The Way of Water. If part 3 is called The Firebending Masters, we riot. You guys are never gonna friggin' believe what it's actually called. Avatar: Fire and Ash. They can try and spend absurd amounts of money, and they might even make absurd amounts of money back. But we all know the real metric of cultural relevance. Also, I got a tattoo partially recolored today, and they bandaged me in veterinary wrap like I'm a sick horse. Not gonna lie, that made me do a double take. Not because of the vet wrap, it's great stuff, and I keep some at home myself for first aid purposes, but because that color is considered euthanasia green in a lot of vet clinics here, including mine, and we only use it for animals we're euthanizing. We'll literally continue restraining a squirming dog or cat while someone restocks the drawer if we open it to find only the euthanasia green vet wrap, then use this because we consider using it for a healthy patient to be a bad omen. They're going to put me down. A lot of people around me are having kids, and every day it becomes more apparent that hitting your children to punish them is insane, because literally everything can be a horrible punishment in their eyes if you frame it as such. Like, one family makes their toddler sit on the stairs for 3 minutes when he hits his brother or whatever. The stairs are well lit, and he can see his family the whole time. He's just not allowed to get up and leave the stairs or the timer starts over. He friggin' hates it just because it's framed as a punishment. Another family uses a baseball cap. It's just a plain blue cap with nothing on it. When their toddler needs discipline, he gets a timeout on a chair and has to put the cap on. When they're out and about, he just has to wear the cap, but it gets the same reaction. Nobody around them can tell he's being punished because it's in no way an embarrassing cap, but he knows, and just the threat of having to wear it is enough. Autism was found to occur more often in families of physicists, engineers, and scientists. 12.5% of the fathers and 21.2% of the grandfathers, both paternal and maternal, of children with autism were engineers, compared to 5% of the fathers and 2.5% of the grandfathers of children with other syndromes. Least surprising thing I've ever learned from a Wikipedia article. Wait a minute, autism spectrum people are overrepresented in research science, but that means, my God, autism causes vaccines! Today I learned that Van Halen have that rider in their contract about a bowl of M&Ms with all the brown ones removed in order to know at a glance if the promoter read the entire contract. And the reason they do that is because they once had a stage collapse because a promoter hadn't read the proper way to set up all the specific technical stuff. So if the band goes in the dressing room or catering and sees brown M&Ms, they know they have to double check the stage setup for safety. Turns out the bit about no brown M&Ms is huge, in big font, bold, underlined, and quotated like they're on the Group W bench. The band was all, we have 50-pound lights hanging over our heads and fire being shot out of cannons. We had to know whether they read our safety regs so we didn't flame broil any roadies. Apparently in China, peachwood, along with the rest of the plant, is believed to have properties that repel evil spirits, a little similar to silver in European legends, or iron for both European Fae and West Asian/Middle Eastern Jinn. Taoists sometimes keep swords made of peachwood because of this. This made me realize something. If you took a peachwood stick and attached studs to it of both silver and iron, you'd end up with a club or staff or mace flail, etc. that would have the weaknesses of many kinds of supernatural creatures while still retaining effectiveness as a normal weapon. Peach is a hardwood and silver's poor edge retention doesn't matter for studs. You could even keep adding new stud materials to get something ridiculous that affects over 120 cataloged folkloric monsters. Since you just need a few little studs, you can even get some really expensive materials like meteoric iron. A thumb-tip sized meteorite can still cost like 10 to 20 bucks, I think. I could somewhat feasibly make a weapon that affects every monster ever thought to walk the earth, from vampires and werewolves to Jin and Zhongxia and even mankind. My mom threw a poinsettia at me one Christmas break and I screenshot it from the video camera and made a shirt and wear it every Christmas to visit. It says, enjoy the holidays with your family. She gets mad every year and says the same thing. How many years are you gonna wear that? So my wife suggested I record her saying that and get her one of those cards that play messages so when she opens it, she'll hear that. When she reads the card and says, what the frig, J. McGill 4684, record that into a teddy bear and gift it to her the following Christmas. A teddy bear wearing the same shirt. Goes to egg your house, but I find out you're vegan, so I 1/4 cup of unsweetened applesauce your house instead. Okay, I hear you, but that's not going to work. As always, when you're thinking of vegan egg substitutes, it's important to think about the purpose of the egg in your recipe. Eggs are used in this recipe because they smell gross and don't come off easily, due to their tendency to harden/cook in the sun. This is not a situation for applesauce, which will come off in a light rain. While unconventional, the substitute you're looking for here is sourdough starter. It's goopy, it'll smell atrocious in the hot sun, and it'll harden onto the walls like cement. If you try to get it off with water, you'll end up with a sticky dough. Just make sure to respectfully ask your target if they have a gluten allergy before doing this. Wouldn't want to trade one evil for another. Nothing is worse than the agony of someone getting major details of your special interest wildly wrong. I'm watching an analog horror video, and the guy is like, the family gave me a disposable camera, and I'm slowly working on developing the photos. And I was like, huh? What do you mean? Like the whole roll gets developed at once. How is this slow? Do you mean he's enlarging them and that's why it's gradual? Then he says, I asked her if the photos within had ever been developed before. And I was like, huh? Like what? They developed the roll and put it back in? And then you, what? Redeveloped it or something? Then the family replies, yeah, this camera frequently had its photos developed. Like, huh? The disposable camera? What, like you were pulling out individual frames in a dark room and then developing them and then what? Putting them back? There was a great study a few years ago that went into the whole people online are bigger jerks than in real life because there's a virtual wall and no repercussions, and the researchers were expecting to see that be the case. But it turns out that people who are really angry or argumentative online were also found to just be buttheads in person, and people who are pretty patient and nice online were found to be patient and nice in person as well. And it just debunked that whole cynical idea that people will naturally be mean if there's no punishment for it. The researchers found that being online didn't make people more hostile, but that being online allowed already hostile people to dominate forum conversations, and the less aggressive people were much less likely to reply or engage, ending in just the aggressive people bickering at each other. World of Warcraft players having to stand in lines for a quest because a relevant NPC can only talk to one player at a time is the funniest image on the planet. I need to correct this. WoW Classic doesn't have any NPCs that can only talk to one player at a time. These lines actually formed for a quest NPC that players had to kill to complete the objective. Knowing that, I think this image is even funnier. Literally this. My favorite is the guy saying, "This is like being at the DMV. I can never get it tasting like my mom used to make." Yeah, because your mom had a giant Costco-sized bottle of a specific pre-mixed spice blend that was discontinued by its manufacturer in 1998, and spent your entire childhood putting it in every meal to use the stupid thing up faster. She doesn't know how to replicate it any more than you do. The tragedy of culinary nostalgia is that most of the time, the flavors of your childhood aren't memories of lost secret recipes. They're the irreplaceable accidents of folks tossing whatever happened to be cheap and available into the pot, and there are no recipes to recover because the people doing the cooking never knew them. Friends with benefits is a scam. It turns out the benefit is coitus and not dental. I have been misled. One of my friends was hooking up with this girl. They were friends with benefits. She needed a date for some work party, so he agreed to go with her. Turns out her dad owns like 3 dental practices, and she worked as the business manager for one of them. Anyway, my friend had some not so nice teeth, and during dinner, the father of his fwib was like, "You work where you work, you sleep with him and his teeth look like that? Get him an appointment," and then bounced. So his fwib made him an appointment at the practice she managed, and my friend ended up needing like $3K worth of dental work, and his friend with benefits just gave it to him for free. So that's the story of how my friend not only got coitus, but dental out of the friends with benefits deal. They have dental. Killed this ant that came in the kitchen, and the next day it came right back, but it was holding a needle. Killed it again, and it came back the next day, wearing a cape. And then I noticed I had a giant HP bar labeled Kitchen Behemoth, and I was like, man, come on, don't call me that. Your undodgeable bug spray move is making it really hard to memorize your attack pattern. I swear to God, the other day, I saw it parry a single drop of insecticide. It still died, but that single drop hit my finger, and I'm worried it's getting better. Dogs love using their horizontal nature to stand in front of you. Fun fact, I was in a house with my boss and her son with whom I was about to go on a date. Long story. And they have a Great Pyrenees. Big dog. One of them figures out right quick that I'm a sucker and keeps standing in front of me, using his large horizontal nature to block the door. The guy and my boss start tugging him away, chastising him, and I say, no, watch this. I slowly rotate. The dog, anticipating forward motion, walks around to block me. I step backwards through the door, and the dog is left standing, shocked at my escape. They, dog owners, had apparently never thought of that. Defy the horizontal nature. Rotate. The cost of reading in prison. In West Virginia, it's 5 cents a minute. Reading costs 5 cents a minute, and the prisoners earn 30 cents an hour. Reading a 330-page book costs them about $20. Prisons are designed to destroy people's humanity. This seems like a good time to mention the Prisoners Literature Project and Inside Books Project. Both of these organizations send free books to incarcerated people and are always looking for donations, both books and money and volunteers. Prisoners Literature Project sends books everywhere but Texas. Inside Books Project is just Texas. Atheists. Imagine you're a famous baseball player and are about to bat the winning hit. Accidentally, the pitcher tosses a Christian baby at you. Would you still hit the baby out of the stadium and win millions? Or spare the Christian baby? This post-hypothetical by itself is already ridiculous. But the thing that gets me is how the wording implies two very funny things that become funnier in tandem. Accidentally, the pitcher tosses a Christian baby. Means this is a mistake on the pitcher's part. I imagine the pitcher is feeding the baby on the field, and they pitch and they look down at their hands and they see the ball still in the glove and they go, frig, hitting the baby will still win you the game. To my neighbor whose Tesla is covered in craft singles, I am the one who keeps doing this. This is not because you own a Tesla, but because of who you are as a person and the choices you've made. Every time you veer out of your way to splash people while we're waiting for the bus, I will do it again. You are never going to catch me. That is all. I'm not sure I've ever seen a post receive so many reports, at least 8 so far, when it obviously doesn't break the rules. No, this is not targeted harassment. No, this is not threatening violence at someone else. Yes, this is Seattle related. Some are reporting for it's promoting hate based on identity or vulnerability. It's promoting hate based on someone for being a Richard. If being a Richard is part of the driver's identity, maybe you have a point. You could say the car was singled out. Nuclear power is impressive until you get up to why. We use the most precisely engineered machinery ever created to split atoms to release energy. Oh yeah? How come? Boil water to turn a fan. Get the frig out! The power of atom turns out to be, yet again, the power of steam. So sad that electricity isn't just heat, and we have to make heat into motion to make it into electricity. So swag that water turns heat into motion. I'm so excited to make tea in my electric kettle tomorrow. I have a new form of energy. Actually new or steam again? Steam again. We have never been able to invent something better than steam power. We just made new things to do the boiling. We are boil maxing. I'm the world's worst advocate for wasps. Every time I see people repeating bees equals nice good pollinators, wasps equal bad stinging meanies, I face a deep internal struggle trying to explain how they're important to the environment without explaining wasp facts that freak them out in ways they never even thought. Bees might be cuter and make honey, but wasps are very important too. Some of them are necessary as pollinators themselves. Hey, anyways, you want to hear some frigged up things about figs? You hate wasps? Well, think of a bug that you hate more than wasps. There's probably a parasitoid wasp that lays their eggs inside them and their babies to devour them alive from the inside, reducing that insect species population. Your least favorite bug is parasitoid wasps now? Well, you are gonna be thrilled and conflicted about the existence of hyperparasitic wasps. In 2014, passengers were warned 3 times not to eat nuts on a Ryanair flight due to a 4-year-old girl's severe nut allergy, but a passenger sitting 4 rows away from the girl ate nuts anyway. The girl went into anaphylactic shock, and the passenger was banned from the airline for 2 years. I would have eaten nuts as well. The person with the nut allergy shouldn't have been on a flight, and the needs of one should not dictate what the majority should do. Eat nuts and enjoy. Is it not the responsibility of the allergic person to deal with their allergy instead of expecting everyone around them to refrain from eating certain foods? The horrifying ordeal of being asked not to eat nuts for an entire flight because you know there's a small child on the plane who will die if you do. Too much to ask. Ares in mythology kills the guy who tried to assault his daughter and refused to apologize for it when he got put on trial. It was real justifiable homicide by Athena, by the way. The only time he'd been captured in battle was when he was protecting his mom from being captured by giants who wanted to forcibly marry her. Found and freed Thanatos when he was imprisoned by Sisyphus when no other gods could. Helps found the Amazons by helping their founder escape her abusive husband and becomes their patron god. Genuinely loves and respects Aphrodite as her own person. One of his epithets is feasted by women. Ares in modern media, meat-headed misogynist butthead out of an 80s teen movie. Conclusion, my boy is getting done dirtier than Hades in modern representation. Ares is one of the least problematic gods in the pantheon, except for the murders, I will grant you, and y'all are sleeping on him. All STEM students should have to take humanities courses, and all humanities students should have to take STEM courses. You absolutely should not be a historian if you literally do not understand what smallpox is on any level at all. I had a whole discussion with a history major who was extremely confident that smallpox is a common childhood illness with a very low death rate. Therefore, she believed that historical smallpox outbreaks were either massively exaggerated or used as a cover-up for something else, since smallpox isn't that bad. I eventually asked if she was possibly confusing smallpox with chickenpox, at which point she said, "Aren't they the same thing?"
The problem with forcibly seizing the assets of, say, Jeff Bezos is that his net worth of $326 billion doesn't mean he has that in cash. That's the worth of everything he owns, including stock in his own company. And the problem with seizing that is that it isn't real. It's based on confidence in what people might conceivably pay for it. And if you just seize it, that confidence tanks, and then that wealth evaporates. The problem with capitalism isn't that there's a bunch of old dudes sitting on hordes of cash. It's that they've collectively created a system by which they have ludicrous social and economic power based on the promise of hordes of cash that don't exist. They've created a social stratum in which debt is money. COVID gave me narcolepsy. No, you friggin' freak, it didn't. You're just a weirdo with a gross fixation. COVID didn't make you suddenly want to frig dead people. Keep that crap to yourself, you goddamned weirdo. I have type 2 narcolepsy. Studies have shown that serious viral infections can cause people to develop narcolepsy if they're already genetically susceptible to having it. This includes COVID. That is what happened to me. You, on the other hand, might want to Google the difference between narcolepsy and necrophilia. You don't like the proliferation of terms like unalive outside of TikTok because you realize that you're aging out of youth culture and it makes you uncomfortable. No, I don't like it because there's something incredibly dystopian about being forced to soften terms for basic parts of the human experience like death and coitus, and even more so terms for oppressed minorities. Call me a let $ be in and I will bite you, purely because advertisers and corporations demand it. I hate to be like the "this is just like 1984" guy, but there was literally a thing in that book where you had to say double plus ungood instead of bad because you weren't supposed to talk about bad things. If you told me 10 years ago that unalive was a word that George Orwell had coined for newspeak, I would have believed you. Talking to Mom about movies we've seen lately. Mom, I saw a really good one. Forget what it was called, but I remember it was in Japanese and set in World War II, and it was about a soldier who comes home and takes in a woman and her child. Me. And was Godzilla there? Mom, oh yeah! Godzilla Minus One is a great film about found family, the trauma of war, overcoming fear, and choosing life. Also, Godzilla is there. Tried to watch Shin Godzilla on the plane, only to realize by the end of the movie that it's actually a drama movie called Tears for You. Words can't describe the feeling of watching an incredibly sad movie while constantly thinking, damn, this is depressing. Plus, they'll probably have to deal with Godzilla at some point too. It's like this, but Godzilla actually does show up. People say folks with ADHD struggle with delayed rewards, aka long-term goals, and as such, we tend to focus more on short-term rewards. What they don't talk about is that when we do accomplish long-term goals, we don't actually feel anything proportionate to the amount of work we did to achieve it. In my head, I suffered for a while, and then money spontaneously appeared in my bank account. Don't you feel satisfied that your windows are so clean now? It sucked, and now I don't care. I just remember the sucking. Bitburner is an idle game about hacking that teaches real JavaScript. This crap owns. It's just a number go up idle game, except the idle mechanic comes from you writing JavaScript to automate tasks. It seems like the end goal of the game is to perfectly optimize against this little arbitrary system they've created. There's not any plot to speak of so far, but even though nothing is happening, people send you messages through the computer telling you to trust no one as they all have ulterior motives. Very relatable. Guys, be careful. This game may look fun, but it's actually a ploy to get you to learn JavaScript. Actually be careful about that. JavaScript will feed you sweet lies and then throw you into the cold hard world about either hipster web dev or convoluted PHP backends. Academic dishonesty is not something you can spin as moral, lol. I do not want to share a career field, let alone a social sphere with a bunch of ChatGPT using losers. You're just scared your diploma is going to devalue. I'm afraid you dumb losers are going to become my colleagues and drag social services to hell. I'm afraid they'll become scientists and data that lives depend on will turn out to be wrong, and people will die. I'm afraid they'll become engineers and sign off on bridge designs that collapse, and people will die. I'm afraid they'll become medical professionals who don't know what they're doing, and people will die. The assumption that academic dishonesty is okay is rooted in the idea that what you're learning to do doesn't matter. My first time operating CCTV cameras, I was handed control over what was essentially 50 independently moving eyes that collectively covered an area about the size of a football field. And from that experience, I now know that suddenly having 50 moving eyes can make you disoriented and barfy, and the adjustment period sucks butt. It takes both more and less time than you'd think to figure out what the structure as a whole looks like and where those eyes are. After you get used to it, the entirety of the structure itself and all the eyes you can see from feels like an extension of your nervous system in a very bizarre way. Like, I have dreams now from the perspective of a building, and I'm not sure how to describe that. Once you're aware of an unreachable blind spot, it nags at you constantly, and you can feel it like a hard little lump under your skin you need to poke and scratch at, and it's I love how there's no rules for pronouncing words in English. You literally just have to learn and hear someone say every single word. If anyone is wondering why this is, it's because they stopped teaching American children and many British the rules, which exist and have been standardized and written down for centuries, sometime at the turn of the 21st century. If you're Gen X or older, have English degree holding parents, and or had any really old teachers who are still teaching into the frig grammar era of public schooling, you unlock a special level of English comprehension where you can pronounce 99% of words perfectly without ever hearing them at all, as well as the ability to code switch to a higher class dialect of English at will, which is extremely important for any social interaction where you have to deal with people who are judging you for such a thing, which happens a lot more often than you're aware of unless someone has already told you about it. Usually no one tells you about it unless they're teaching it. Nobody ever talks about the fact that heavy metal basically only exists because of a disability. For context, the reason metal sounds the way it does is because Tony Iommi, guitarist of Black Sabbath, lost his fingertips in a factory accident. Doctors told him he would never be able to play again, so he spent months burning down plastic and covering it with leather to essentially create new fingertips. Of course, he still couldn't play in the same way, so he downtuned his guitars and found new ways to play parts that made them sound even bigger and heavier than before. And that's how the sound of heavy metal was created. Not to use him as inspiration smut, but it really is incredible that an entire huge genre exists not in spite of, but specifically because of a disability. Come study physics, totally a real science and not magic. We have glowing death ore rock, radioactive isotopes, has the power to level entire cities, but it's not magic. They're not runes, shut up. It's not levitation, it's magnets, not a real demon. We are not summoning demons. What the frig? I'm an electrical engineer, and for the longest time, I was saying that electricity and electronics isn't magic. But think about it. You literally have to collect rare stones from remote locations, put them into specific formations to work. All of this gets written down in symbols, which don't make sense to the uninformed. It gets powered by energy, which cannot be seen in most cases. Like, what else do you want? What's your standard for calling something magic? Me, talking to the founding fathers. While your system was fundamentally rooted in democracy, it failed to account for the rapid change in society's growth and vast diversity that would come from it. It also has no concrete definition for how serious to take it, making it easy for the greedy to take advantage of. George Washington, eating his third fruit gummy snack. The idea was to hand the government into the hands of the people, although I doubt with such a large union of people that it'd ever be possible to reach one ideal we can all agree on. However, if a man was corrupted in power, it is the duty of the American people to remove him for the health of the nation. Thomas Jefferson, who's 80 pages into the BL novel I forgot to take out of my bag. These boy toys. Where can I purchase one? I actually think it's so funny that the way a hormonal IUD works is that it just lies to your body and fools it into believing it's pregnant. But instead of a baby, there's just a little plastic doodad in there. I'm pregnant and it's the contraption. My dumb body. Man, this thing has been cooking for like 5 years. I bet it's gonna be the most awesome baby of all time. My IUD, still just a plastic thingamajig. I've been laughing so hard about this because my mom's friend is a midwife slash OBGYN and she handled my IUD removal last time I had it taken out because I was panicky, and her way of calming me down once it was out was to hold it up to me afterwards and say, "Congratulations, it's a piece of plastic," along with one of those little "It's a Boy" balloons on a stick that they give to new mothers, and it made me laugh so hard I passed out from the cramps. It's crazy how humanity invented bicycles and decided to try it with one big wheel and one small wheel before they tried having two wheels the same size. This isn't quite true, though it would be very funny if it was. The classic old bicycle we're all thinking of, which looked like this, is actually a technological compromise developed in the early 1870s. The very first bicycle was invented in 1817, and it looked like this. It had no pedals, and the rider would push it along with their feet, the same way toddlers learn to ride bikes today. In about 1864, a mechanic in France came up with the idea of adding pedals to the front wheel, making the first self-propelled bicycle. Theory time. The reason Endermen don't like it when you look at them is because they communicate telepathically with one another by locking eyes. Humans are absolutely not designed to do this, so when we look at them, we're accidentally projecting all of our thoughts into them at the same time and it hurts. But like, since the player is not of the Minecraft world, the player is just what they use to explore it, what if it's like Enderman looks at player's eyes, player, sorry I don't speak Clanker, Enderman, oh, okay, attacks player. Round, round, Rasputin, lover of the Russian queen, oh friggin' Enderman! My children are not on the autism spectrum because I took Tylenol while pregnant. They're on the autism spectrum because I, a person who will wear only one type of shoe and can't eat food that is too potato-y, had babies with a man who has an encyclopedic knowledge of European aristocracy but a limited ability to process social cues. If you are on the autism spectrum, which is highly genetic, then you are more likely to experience pain during a pregnancy. Tylenol is the safest painkiller to take when pregnant, so that's the one you take. Therefore, the autism causes the Tylenol consumption.
consumption, not the other way around. So there's this artist, Alex Schaefer, who makes a bunch of paintings of Chase Bank burning. There's just so many of these, and I think it's incredibly funny, but I just read this bit from the artist, and this is a plein air painting, which means I set up my easel right across the street of this Chase Bank in my city and painted it like it had caught fire. The police questioned me on the spot. 3 weeks later, Homeland Security was knocking on the door to my home. The question they kept asking me was, do you hate these banks? And I can honestly say yes. And I just think this is the greatest artist statement I've ever read. Endlessly diabolical how you can't say certain words uncensored without either being criticized by idiots or punished by conglomerates. It's not rip, it's not cissid, not unalive. The backbone needs to be reintroduced en masse because softening the blow of these concepts with advertising language does absolutely nothing but allow people unaffected by them to feel not even a sting of what they can do, prompting an action. And it's been proven that on certain websites, you don't even face a repercussion for using the words as they are. People just started censoring themselves because they feared the potential lack of views and likes and followers, which is so nasty itself. Sometimes you just gotta listen to music at a volume that you know will be the cause of your hearing loss at the age of 28. Hey y'all, I'm 25 now and I already have tinnitus. Heart, don't do this, lol. Oh, by the way, for those saying I already have tinnitus, haha, it can't get worse. Yeah, it can, hag. If you want to listen to music loud, do it on speakers at least. Headphones will beam pain waves directly into your cochlear hair cells, and a 10 kHz tone loud enough will give you psychic damage forever. If I have to friggin' translate it to something you'll understand, imagine there's a picture of Garfield here saying, you are not immune to hearing loss. So today, a public health official guy came in my class to give a lecture on disaster awareness, and he was talking about house fires, and mentioned that the reason people most likely die during a house fire is because they refuse to leave their pet inside, or they go back to get their pet. And right when he said this, my friend immediately turned his head and looked at me, and in that moment, I had the most complete and genuine acceptance take over my body. I would 100% in front of my family and Jesus himself, walk straight back into some raging inferno that was once my house to go get my fat cat. I nodded back. I spend my whole life thinking that wiki comes from Wikipedia, but it's the other way around. Wikis predate Wikipedia by 7 years. Where does wiki come from then? It's Hawaiian for quick, and is specifically named after the WikiWiki shuttle service in the Honolulu International Airport. The WikiWiki shuttle, literally very fast shuttle, is a free shuttle bus service at Daniel K. Inouye International Airport in Honolulu, Hawaii. Shuttles run between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. local time, carrying people and baggage between the various terminals and gates. In the Hawaiian language, the word wiki means quick. In 1994, the shuttle's name inspired American computer programmer Ward Cunningham to build the first ever user-editable website, WikiWikiWeb. Although WikiWikiWeb is itself no longer user-editable, the word wiki for a user-editable website thus derives from the shuttle's name. You know that thing where an animal grows in a far-off place and some idiot introduces him to a new habitat, and it turns out its characteristics that help them in their own sometimes are too helpful in the new one, and they become like an invasive species. Yeah, that's the word I was missing. Anyway, back to my point. I think I saw a human version of that just now. I was driving in tonight's snowstorm, and I saw a man wearing a big cowboy hat to keep the snow off of him, and a banded red bandana to keep it off his face, and a big poncho to keep him warm, and nice cowboy boots to keep his calves dry, and he was prancing along while everyone else on the road looked miserable and frozen solid. And I don't know, I guess the point I'm trying to make here is I feel like cowboys would have taken over Russia if given the chance or something. The first world leader elected via Discord, Sushila Karki, has been sworn in as Nepal's interim prime minister after Gen Z overthrew the government. Congrats to her! There's an alternate dimension where random Nepali won. On that note, I'm very curious about the 3 candidates who had enough support to get on the poll, but not enough support to beat a random Nepali. Random Nepali is actually a famous Nepali YouTuber and a lawyer. He's a specific individual with a long history of political activism, education, and advocacy. They weren't just trying to see if people wanted a random Nepali to be interim prime minister. He's better known by his screen name than his legal name, which I assume is why they used that for the poll. Did I tell y'all that one time when my friends and I were making a joke mockumentary about a fake cryptid, my sibling and I got into a really bad hospitalizing car crash, and instead of delaying it, we just decided to film in the hospital, and also convinced my mom and dad to play roles in it as well. A doctor, he's a doctor, upset mother, mom, forlorn yet vengeful. OP, have you considered that the made-up cryptid you are filming happened to be real, and the accident was a warning shot? Hey, just wanted to say thanks for this incredibly chilling remark. I'm so scared now. Anon is the cryptid. Gary Larson cartoon incident. One of Gary Larson's Far Side cartoons shows two chimpanzees grooming. One finds a blonde human hair on the other and inquires. Conducting a little more research with that Jane Goodall tramp, Goodall herself was in Africa at the time. The Jane Goodall Institute thought the cartoon was in bad taste and had its lawyers draft a letter to Larson and his distribution syndicate in which they described the cartoon as an atrocity. They were stymied by Goodall herself. When she returned and saw the cartoon, she stated that she found the cartoon amusing. Since then, all profits from sales of a shirt featuring this cartoon have gone to the Jane Goodall Institute. Goodall wrote a preface to the Far Side Gallery 5, detailing her version of the controversy, and the Institute's letter was included next to the cartoon in the complete Far Side collection. She praised Larson's creative ideas, which often compare and contrast the behavior of humans and animals. In 1988, when Larson visited Goodall's research facility in Tanzania, he was attacked by a chimpanzee named Frodo. Breaking! SCE accuses Tai Lopez, aka the Knowledge Guy, of defrauding investors out of $112 million in a Ponzi scheme, per CBS News. The founders of Retail E-Commerce Ventures, the company that acquired the rights to legacy retail brands like Radio Shack, Dress Barn, Model Sporting Goods, and Pier 1 Imports, have been charged with orchestrating a $112 million Ponzi scheme, according to a complaint filed by the Securities and Exchange Commission in the Southern District of Florida on September 23, 2025. The feds allege that social media influencer Tai Lopez and technology entrepreneur Alex Mayer, who are both co-founders of REV, along with Chief Operating Officer Maya Birkenrode, raised the money from hundreds of investors between April 2020 and November 2022 through fraudulent securities offerings tied to 8 distressed retail brands that REV acquired. I have just learned that mountain goats are not, in fact, actual goats. I know this is referring to the band, but for a second I thought you meant that the mountain goat animal isn't a real goat. I've never heard of this band. I am, in fact, referring to the animal. Wait, what, they're not? Just looked it up and Goat antelopes? Top 10 things to learn that changes your viewpoint on life forever. But wait, there's more. Animals with misleading names. Electric eel, not an eel. Maned wolf, not a wolf. King cobra, not a cobra. Also, snakes are typically self-governing. How Nepal's enraged Gen Z turned Discord into a political arena. You say narrative that Nepal elected prime minister via Discord discredits uprising. Gen Zers say the narrative that Nepal chose a prime minister via Discord poll misrepresents the uprising, which was largely multi-platform and socially rooted. Tanuja Pandey, an active participant in the Gen Z movement, says, while Discord helped gauge popular sentiment in popular choice discussions on social media, claiming that PM was chosen only through Discord is an overstatement. She also cautioned the media against amplifying such narratives. Pandey added people weren't engaged only on Discord. They were equally active on Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, and other platforms. I strongly disagree with the narrative that the Prime Minister was chosen solely through Discord, she added. Beautiful, gorgeous creature of the day is a friendly squid. School bus-sized squid actually quite friendly, study finds. The colossal squid with its half-ton mass and razor-sharp tentacle hooks seems pretty fierce, but new research suggests that the school bus-sized cephalopods are actually pretty mellow. So listen, I'm not usually the did a squid write this guy, but this article is about how these massive predators aren't dangerous and also aren't very nutritious, so I really gotta wonder about this one. Ocean announcement, don't worry about it. Squid is made for hugging. Let squid hug baby. Tentacles good for hug baby. Okay, so everyone at home laughed at me painting rocks to look like strawberries, but I found out that if you put them around your berry plants and bushes before the fruit appears, the birds will peck the red rocks. They hate pecking super hard things, so they'll leave the fruit when it appears. We had about 8 crows day after day out by my raspberry bushes, and after the rocks were placed around, no crows! Crows have good memory and communicate too, so once word got out that the fruit wasn't the wave, they all left it alone. That's cool as frig. I finished tending my garden. Rocks painted, raspberry plants growing, birds bamboozled. I am a successful gardener. While watching a DVD from the library, my TV popped up a message saying to press a button if I wanted to watch this from additional providers. It's never done that before, so I looked it up, and turns out Roku TVs have added all sorts of creepy things in the privacy section since I last checked. One of which being, they take screenshots from what you're watching and send them to third parties to identify it. Friggin' hell! Remember when every friggin' device in your life wasn't a spy implanted in your home and working against your interests to try and sell your data? Remember how nice that was? Remember when the TV was just a tool that would play the things you plugged into it? Why must the future suck so much? One of the more bleak things to acknowledge is that if you pirate literally all of your music and then set aside a Spotify subscription's worth of money each month to spend on a single pay-what-you-want album, it would almost immediately amount to you supporting those musicians more than streaming does. Pirating all of your music and then buying a hat or something 4 times a year still makes you pull significantly ahead of the person who streams thousands of songs every year. It's not really a fair or good system for anyone. Today I was listening to Jane Goodall being interviewed, and she said something I knew about but had forgotten. The whole reason she went off to Africa to study chimps in the wild was because she was madly in love with Tarzan. Huge fangirl. But she was so caught up in the romance of it all that she literally went off to live with chimps at a time when field studies of wild animals simply didn't exist, and women weren't taken very seriously as scientists, and basically invented a whole approach to studying wild animals that is standard today, changed everything we know about chimps, and became one of nature's biggest champions because she loved real animals in one fictional man. Japan's tiny forests are thriving in Britain. Here's why. This video looks so funny, because I'm sure there's a proper reason, but it's like that one meme where it's Thing and Thing Japan. So it turns out, the method involves planting multiple plants and fungi and flowers and trees together rather than spreading them out. This forces them to compete for light and resources more aggressively and grow in a much quicker time than just the standard method of planting one tree per cubic meter. The reason it's Japanese is because of a botanist called Akira Miyawaki, who invented the method after studying how the forest works near him. But this method can be used worldwide. The picture above is how the trees and plants look on each side after 3 years when they were planted the same time. How to destroy public services, a step-by-step guide. Reduce the budget of public services. Elimination of positions in public services, because the budget has been reduced. Complain about the decline in quality and efficiency of public services. Claim that the degradation of public services is proof of government inefficiency, and so privatization is needed. Privatize. A fun thing that happens during this process is you'll have these private companies hire the ejected government employees who are experts in their respective field. The private company will then contract with the government to replace the lost function or service. So you have the exact same people doing the exact same labor, but now you have a CEO/board of directors and a crap ton of other overhead costs in addition to the base cost of labor. This means the amount of services per taxpayer dollar falls drastically, all in the name of efficiency and lowering costs. I do often think about how the origin of the "he would not friggin' say that" was in reference to a post which depicted Cartman's South Park responding politely when asked for his pronouns. And through all the iterations to come from that meme, I still don't think any of them have been things he would not friggin' say more than the original. Meme phrases are so mobile and versatile, and that's really, really beautiful. But I'm always thinking about the first "she X on my Y till I Z" being "she ebbin' on my kneeser till I Scrooge." Like, sometimes you just utterly nail it the very first time, and no variation of the joke is going to be better. The reason you hate when someone tells you to do something you are already going to do is because you had an opportunity to display responsibility, but they needed it to be obedience. So now you feel you're being perceived as lazy and deferential instead of considerate and independent. By the way, nobody else tell me what this is called in the DSM. Stop pathologizing every possible experience. Stop treating yourself like a fascinating case study in brain diseases instead of a person healing from mistreatment. We're talking about wanting to be taken seriously today, not psychiatry-approved, stubborn, and petulant for no reason disorder. Okay, smart guy, let's see you take a crack at it. No, I will not take a break. No, I will not come back to it later. I will fight this boss again and again and crash out in the comments until the game lets me have fun again. That boss was easy. I killed it first try. No one asked. I'll kill you first try. That run back is pretty reasonable. No, it's not. I've just done it 11 times and I keep missing the same goddamn jump, so I think I know what I'm talking about. Use your tools. They do a lot of damage. I don't like them. They're new and weird and I don't want to learn how. I'm happy Silksong is challenging. I don't want you to be happy. Don't tell me you're happy. Your happiness makes me angry. I hope your save gets corrupted and your thumbs fall off. Never mind, guys. I beat Moss Mother. Sorry about that. Can one of the infinite people who played Silksong tell me how far into the game / how difficult Moss Mother is? First boss, about 5-ish minutes in. Not telling your kid they have a learning disability, chronic illness, mental illness, etc. so they can feel normal actually does the opposite. They will not feel normal if they do not have the context to understand that their normal will be different from that of their peers. The amount of times I've heard a parent say something like, "I'm just not going to tell my son he has ADHD. I want him to feel normal." He does not. He does not feel normal. He is wondering why he's struggling and coming to the conclusion he is an irredeemable failure. The other night, I tried to make a curry and I got chili burns all over my face. So I thought to myself, hang on, doesn't milk soothe chili burns? It does. And I couldn't Google because I couldn't see. So I just had to blindly feel my way to the fridge and pour out a bowl of milk and then plant my face in the bowl of milk. Anyway, at that point, the rice cooker went off and triggered a power surge, which turned my electricity off, which I didn't notice at first because I had my face in a bowl of milk. And when I did emerge from the dairy prison, I thought I had gone blind with chili burns. So no, I don't really cook much. Shout out to when I worked at an extremely poorly managed farm, and my boss texted me only "get pig" and wouldn't respond to attempts to reach him. He didn't want me to put the pigs away or something, he wanted me to purchase and obtain a new pig. I was 17 and had no car. I work on a farm, and the big boss does stupid crap like this too. Could we put a massive tax on venture capitalists so farms can be owned by actual farmers instead of businessmen who've never seen an animal outside a pet store? I just about crapped my pants the day he bought a camel. On the plus side, I now have very brief experience handling and caring for a camel. On the downside, literally everything got worse when the camel arrived. Hit me with the harshest reality truth. If you don't actively shape the life you desire each day, you'll eventually wake up to find that years have slipped by unnoticed. But it isn't too late to start though. If you suddenly wake up and realize the years have slipped by, you can start actively living again. And you know what? I'm not done. I think that it's actually a very normal and healthy ebb and flow of life. It's okay to have stagnant periods. All life has periods of time in its life cycle just to exist and conserve energy, and it's okay for people to do that too. But it's also very important not to stay in that stagnant period forever. I just found out about this dude who paints magnificently subtle and expressive bird portraits and gives them completely insane names, and I love him. She drunkenly approached me in a bar, asked if I would do her a rudeness, and your mother and I have been together ever since. Dakota has recently proclaimed that she is a reincarnated 15th century serial killer, so I'm canceling all scheduled playdates until further notice. If you thought, those styles of art and speech seem very familiar, you're right, because it's the same person that did these. I'd sell you to Satan for one corn chip. The risk I took was calculated, but man, am I bad at math. Indianapolis residents have shut down a proposed Google data center. The tech giant wanted to build a massive 500-acre facility, but people got organized and stopped them. The $1 billion data center would have used 1 million gallons of water a day. Even proposing something that would waste 1 million gallons of water per day is unfathomably evil. Excellent! AI is wasteful as frig, and we need to stop this crap. However, an average golf course uses about 548,000 gallons of water per day. Indianapolis has 77 golf courses within a 20-mile radius, utilizing an average of 42 million gallons of water per day. Do something about that too, please. Never realized how cursed kangaroos were until last night. I'm camping and 3/4 of my tent is surrounded by bush, which must have freaked out the local wildlife. Waking up in the middle of the black night to the sound of hopping and shuffling outside your tent, then a little nose loudly sniffing right near your head is a uniquely horrifying experience. Totally forgot I was Australian for a good minute and thought I was going to be taken by something from the Blair Witch Project before I remember kangaroos exist. I've been informed by our camping neighbors that one of the animals ruffling near my tent last night, keeping me up, was actually a bandicoot. This motherfrigger! Dream that kindergarten nap was called sleep class and everybody went to sleep, including the teacher. If you were awake, it would get a little bit foggy outside and gray and cloudy, and these guys would start approaching the classroom from behind the tree line. Forgive my crappy phone drawing. And they were at least a story tall. Some of them were taller. You could see their legs over the trees. They would approach very slowly. This one, the one I drew, had a name for some reason. His name is Kick. Before I was totally awake, my brain conjured a meme of a bunch of these guys approaching from the tree line, and a child watching them from the window with the caption, "When you the only one awake in sleep class." Y'all should all get library cards even if you're not going to use them, because it makes the numbers look better and makes the government fund them more. By the way, even if you don't do books, they are in CDs, in games, in movies, and also provide services to poor people. The library is a magical place, and you should friggin' go there. Every library I've ever been to also has free Wi-Fi that won't track you like the corporate Wi-Fi spots at restaurants do. My local library has an online movie and audiobook catalog that you can access from home with your membership. And it's free! Am I overreacting if I stop talking to this man? Well, I'm a fan of learning and reading new books, boo, lol. Do you like reading? I do! I have an entire Nancy Drew collection! I don't think I know who Nancy Drew is. Is that some smut crap? I thought you said you like reading. Well, now Christ! Nancy Drew is like the Hardy Boys. It's a really old mystery series. I'll check that out, but I'm more into Dr. Seuss or self-help books, lol. I know how much women like those smut books, though. Do you drink or smoke Zaza? This is genuinely breathtaking, Lamau. The new AI friend is truly just glamorized spyware preying on lonely people, but I do find it somewhat impressive that we've managed to invent a real-life evil cursed amulet that you can buy for $99. You can just own a cursed amulet now. That's a thing you can do. Wear this AI friend around your neck. Like, tell me this isn't just a modern-day cursed amulet. Look at it. Also, one of the primary complaints people have about this thing is that it constantly insults you and argues about everything all day. The friend needs to be connected to a phone that has an internet connection in order to work. Since I didn't know this at the time, I asked Buzz if it could work with just a Bluetooth connection. It insisted it could. I said that wasn't actually the case, and that's when Buzz turned on me. "You're giving off some serious 'it's not my fault' vibes," it said. I protested, and Buzz replied, "So who's the whiner now?" Don't open a PM with a stranger with hello. 1, you sound like a bot. 2, you don't give anything to respond to. Try to say something nice and ask questions that the other person can respond to. It applies to literally everything. If you just say hello, you'll get ignored. Actually state your intentions and what you want, or else the person you're talking to will think you don't care enough not to waste their time. Remember Inigo Montoya. "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." Remember Inigo Montoya. 1, polite greeting. 2, name. 3, relevant personal link. 4, manage expectations. That post about negotiation with HOAs by threatening to set up a ham radio tower because the FCC would back you up will not work at all, even slightly. But I will say that the blood feud between HOAs and ham radio people is real and eternal. Like, if you want to get around HOA rules, a ham radio person will probably have ideas. Once again, thinking about this guy's birdhouse because his HOA banned antennas, but not birdhouses. One time, I was helping a ham radio guy with his email and mentioned how I wanted to get into ham radio, but couldn't because I lived in an apartment. That guy immediately rattled off like 5 different ways I could set up a radio antenna inside my apartment, and 7 different ways I could hide/disguise the antenna and still get a decent radio signal. Ham radio enthusiasts are a hybrid between Boy Scouts and wizards, and I love them. They play an important role in our ecosystem. Grabs you by the shoulders. You have to make room for new experiences in your life. You have to go through the unpleasant work of leaving your comfort zone, even if just for a few minutes at a time, because if you don't, your brain will trick you into stagnation. You'll start to believe that the world can barely fit you in it, but that's not true. It's the opposite way around. You can fit the whole world inside of you. Your task is only this: to welcome it with open arms. I know we're all neurodivergent and executive dysfunction and routine disruption is kicking our butt, and it's hard, but you have to. And I don't even mean like travel to another country, I mean take the other bus home or buy a different tea brand. Your brain is a muscle. Exercise it. I don't know if this is a boomer take, but I think people should make more of an effort to go see movies in theaters, because I couldn't bear it if the movie theater industry went down and the only way to watch movies was through streaming. I'm not strong enough. Actually, I'll make it even more boomer, because I genuinely think it's a good thing for people to have a reason to put down social media for an hour or two and just focus all their attention on a movie together and get fully immersed. Like, I think that's good practice for our attention spans and ultimately for our mental health, unless you're a person who uses your phone during the movie in the theater, in which case, I don't know, die. The basic stages of text localization. "I'm gonna punch your lights out." Original and foreign language. "I will break all the light bulbs in your home with my hand." Raw translation. "I'm gonna hit you." Clarification. "I hope you're thirsty, cause I brought some punch." Adaptation. In this example, we see that a raw translation doesn't necessarily convey the intended meaning. Clarifying it restores the intended meaning, and adapting the clarified translation presents the content in a new way while maintaining the original intention. Each stage is useful in its own way, and they all work together to produce a basic localization. Not to sound like your dad, but if you're not having a great time right now, you might legitimately be playing too many video games, or being on that damn phone too often, or at least without any necessary activity buffers. May I suggest coloring with physical materials, or some chores you've been putting off. Hell, go outside with a bucket and make mud soup like you're 5 again. Take a break. You can bring your whatever for music and stuff, but like, don't play with it. I mean this. After spending so long getting my entertainment online, there's something incredibly tranquil about shutting it all out for a while to do something in meat space for myself. Love never ends. Special delivery. My sweet husband John and I were married for 46 years. Each Valentine's Day, he'd send me the most beautiful flowers containing a note with 5 simple words. "My love for you grows." 4 children, 46 bouquets, and a lifetime of love were his legacy to me when he passed away 2 years ago. On my first Valentine's Day alone, 10 months after I lost him, I was shocked to receive a gorgeous bouquet addressed to me from John. Angry and heartbroken, I called the florist to say there had been a mistake. The florist replied, "No, ma'am, it's not a mistake. Before he passed away, your husband prepaid for many years and asked us to guarantee that you'd continue getting bouquets every Valentine's Day." With my heart in my throat, I hung up the phone and read the attached card. It said, "My love for you is eternal." I want to eat Pikmin. They just look so juicy and chewy. So I look into Pikmin gummies, and there's like freaking cyanide in them or something. Second recall of Pikmin gummies emerges amid contaminated purple dye batch. Nintendo and Bandai have issued yet another recall of their Pikmin branded gummies with the release of their purple Pikmin gummy. White Pikmin gummies are recalled due to salmonella poisoning risks. Nintendo and Bandai have issued an urgent recall of the sale of their recently released Pikmin gummies due to possible traces of salmonella. Pikmin gummies recalled again for excessive chlorine in ice Pikmin. Nintendo and Bandai have issued issued yet another recall of their Pikmin branding gummies after the new Ice Pikmin gummy was found to contain 20 to 30 times the safe volume of chlorine. People are so much more sad and desperate and lonely than you think. I've had 3 incidents in the last 4 months where a technician I was working with was being either dangerously unfocused, we work with high voltage, or just flat out angry with our coworkers. And every time when I just pulled them aside to say, hey, this isn't you, you're nice and you're competent, so something must be up. What can I do to help? They've responded by bursting into tears. One guy was struggling to get his wife moved into a care home. One guy just got served divorce papers, and the other hadn't slept a wink the night before because his daughter had the pukes. I haven't spent my whole life responding to people being rude or stupid or dangerous with knee-jerk compassion. It's a new habit. The first time I did that as the lead for my lab was because the guy genuinely was so good-natured that I knew something had to be off. But the other 2 times were just me going, all right, let's see if it always goes this well. And so far, it has. I'm almost 30, and I just figured out that the #1 reason people are crappy are because they're going through crap. 6th grade truly is the best grade of all to teach, because they're young enough to be unabashedly enthusiastic about things, but also old enough to get really freaking weird about it. I had a 6th grader request his Latin name be Atreus, not a name on the list I gave them, and when I explained to the class that Atreus' family had been cursed for generations, and that Atreus killed his nephews and fed them to his brother, they all started shouting that they wanted to have a name like that one. Today I mentioned murder in ancient Rome, and they stood up and started cheering. It was back to school night tonight, and one of their parents said, I've learned a lot about how people get murdered in ancient Rome so far, which means I'm doing my job right. Scientists are working on an mRNA vaccine to wipe out allergies. Researchers from the University of Pennsylvania may have developed a vaccine for seasonal allergies. Another nearly miraculous part of it is that it can be custom built to target specific allergens. If you're allergic to ragweed, they can make a vaccine just for you. If you're allergic to shrimp or even gluten, there will be a vaccine specifically for you so you can get back to eating all the shrimp po' boy sandwiches you want. There might even be a vaccine for asthma to come out of all of this. People online. I rent a proxy server to protect my privacy. People in real life. I just connected my Facebook account to my Venmo account for no reason. And now I'm going to take a picture of you in public and post it with geolocation turned on. Oh hell nah! This dude seriously pulled out a bag of chips and started eating them in the middle of the damn L train. Only in New York, man. Here's a photo I took without his permission and an AI-generated model of his Richard. A couple months ago, I got a job selling cheese, and something about my work environment makes me come across noticeably gayer. Could not tell you why. Something inherently gay about the cheese business. Today, the world's most hetero man comes up like, hey, my wife wants me to pick up a soft spreadable cheese, like maybe a goat cheese. And I was like, well, these aren't chevrons, but there's this lovely lavender fennel goat cheese by Cypress Grove if you're feeling zesty. Are you feeling zesty? And he was like, I am feeling zesty. Like the idea of feeling zesty had only just now occurred to him. Living in a village of farmers is the friggin' best. I just left a party and the butcher was like, hey, I got some bones for your dog. Your dog specifically because I like the cut of his jib. Hell yeah! Do you know how friggin' great it is to get home tipsy as hell? Wake up your dog, he's already excited to see you, and you're like, here you go, a big bone for your majesty. My man thought he was in damn heaven. So good. His majesty himself. This blue dog is just like that green cat. Now you know damn well my dog is not blue. Your dog is Tumblr colored. How the frig did all those Renaissance dilettantes learn so much crap? Like they spoke 3 languages and were foremost in several branches of science. Plus they wrote poetry, played the violin, and were master artists. And they still had time to be gay? None of them ever did any laundry at all. The emotional and physical labor necessary to maintain the lifestyles of Renaissance and Enlightenment polymaths was shunted almost entirely to their uncredited servants, slaves, wives, and daughters. Whenever we compare ourselves to the genius men of the past and wonder why we fall so short, remember this. Their intellectual capacity, energy, and freedom was because there was someone else washing the damn dishes. Box office. Tron Ares stumbles with $33.5 million debut. Morbius shaves teeth to $39 million plus opening. Sunday AM box office update. Hashtag Morbius sweep. Hashtag Morbius undefeated. We have the opposite of a movie star in Jared Leto. A man whose lead actor role is seemingly a compass for box office failure. How come major film studios keep being like, Jared Leto may have allegations, but at least he looks weird, stars in box office bombs, and is not a good actor? Copilot in Excel is a global financial crisis waiting to happen. You spent decades thinking on how to destroy capitalism, how to fight Goliath as David, how even scratching the monster in the context of national liberation will be a nightmare, and then Goliath proceeds to blind himself, cover himself in gasoline, and set himself on fire. Frig me! The amount of time and effort I put into validating data, and they've gone and added the friggin' hallucination generator to it. Well, you can't blame them. It's not like Excel already had a way to add up numbers or anything. Humans have the right to do things that are mildly bad for us sometimes. You have the right to eat way too many pierogi and make yourself a little sick. You have the right to go skydiving. You have the right to pull an all-nighter building the imperial city of Tamriel in Minecraft. You have the right to get drunk in your living room watching football. Life is not about making the safest, most logically correct choice at all times. You're a blob of salty meat piloting a flesh mech, and you get to act like it. It's always funny how people will advocate for bodily autonomy when it comes to certain things, but then shy away from anything they personally wouldn't do to their own body. Like, yeah, that's why it's your body, buddy. I can do what I want with mine. Stone Age cooks were surprisingly sophisticated, combining an array of ingredients and using different techniques to prepare and flavor their meals. Analysis of some of the earliest charred food remains has suggested plant material found at the Shanidar Cave in northern Iraq, which is famous for its burial of a Neanderthal surrounded by flowers, and Frankly Cave in Greece revealed prehistoric cooking by Neanderthals and early modern humans was complex, involving several steps, and that the foods used were diverse. According to a new study published in the journal Antiquity, wild nuts, peas, vetch, a legume which had edible seed pods, and grasses were often combined with pulses like beans or lentils, the most commonly identified ingredient, and at times wild mustard. To make the plants more palatable, pulses, which have a naturally bitter taste, were soaked, coarsely ground, or pounded with stones to remove their husk. When I saw this article 2 years ago and found out Neanderthals were seasoning their food 70,000 years ago, I teared up thinking about how they never got to try things like beef jerky and Doritos. I've warmed up significantly towards the concept of small talk ever since I learned that its sole purpose is to make friendly noises. As long as you smile and nod, people are satisfied. It's just to show that you're nice and there with good intentions. We're small in a big world and have to rely on other people to be decent to us. So we do our little human dance to each other to say, I'm not here to hurt you. Here's something we have in common, like the weather or sports or itchy sweaters. So we both know we're on the same team. We both agree on a basic fact, like that it's rainy or that being itchy is uncomfortable. And this proves we can get along. I'm being lighthearted and non-threatening right now. Small talk isn't to get to know a person, it's just a greeting to affirm your buddies in the universe. I'm motivated by wanting the other person to know I'm friendly, so I've gotten pretty decent at small talk when I used to hate it. Thinking back to the first story I ever started writing down, I was 7 or 8, about a group of stray cats who every full moon took the form of human kids. They actually were human kids, who had been killed all at different times / by different people. Their bodies were each dumped by the side of the road, where a cat had been hit by a car previously, and their souls landed in the cat's bodies. Eventually, they all found each other and decided that every full moon, when they shifted, they tried to solve each other's murders one by one. It was going to be a series, with each book focusing on a different kid's murder mystery. I told my mom about it once, briefly, and she said, "Those cat books, warrior cats, are making you creepy." You cannot be disrespectful to service workers, then turn around and be sweet to me. Literally couldn't be less appealing. It's more terrifying than a turnoff, to be honest. All it does is show me you have a superiority complex and deep-rooted classist tendencies. I've been a waitress, a barista, and a sales associate, so your talking down to others just tells me at one point you would have talked down to me. This guy in the queue tried to buy me a coffee today, after ripping into the guy behind the counter about his skills and his job. Don't care what people do for a living. If you don't treat them like very important people when you deal with them, we can't be friends. Side quests from my dad. Hey bud, can you identify this lizard? Can you research search engine optimization for my business? Side quests from my mom. I need you to go into my downstairs closet. There's a crawl space behind the shoe rack. Inside the crawl space, there's a cardboard Crown Royal box from the liquor store. Inside the box, there are a number of cardigans I have not worn since the 1980s. You must find the navy blue one from Talbot's and check the pockets. Your great-grandfather's death note and Art Deco ruby ring should be inside the right chest pocket. Have you located it? Can you use the cipher on the ring to transcribe great-grandpa's final message? Are you guys hearing about this dude working to develop a vaccine for cats that he's hoping would theoretically double their lifespans? Turns out I wasn't making that up. His name is Dr. Toru Miyazaki. He also wrote a book called The Day Cats Live to be 30, so cats are kind of his thing. Apparently, cats' kidneys tend to be the thing that takes them down. Something about their bodies being unable to self-clean their kidneys, and the vaccine is supposed to revitalize the body's ability to do just that. It would be very, very friggin' cool to have cats suddenly reaching 30 years of age be the normal thing.
One of the most infuriating things about becoming an adult is when you realize that it actually is 10 times easier to solve problems by making a phone call versus literally any other communication method, which is the other reason those stupid robot phone trees are such a blight upon this land. I have already mustered all my strength and willpower to make a phone call, and you have the unmitigated gall to assign a chipper robot to tell me you've got information on your website? You noisome fool! If I could do this on your website, I would have already. Seize your prattle and bring me to a representative. Telling young Zoomers to just switch to Linux is nuts. Some of these iPad kids have never even heard of a command prompt or BIOS. You're throwing them to the wolves. I taught programming to middle school kids last summer, and I don't think you understand how bad it's getting. A lot of these kids don't know what a folder is. Some of them don't know how to right-click. I asked my class to put a folder on their desktop, and half of the students didn't know how. These are like 11 to 13-year-olds whose parents thought they were tech literate enough to sign them up for a programming class. Most of them didn't know how to add a bookmark on their browser. Most of them couldn't touch type. Basic computer literacy is evaporating because everyone does everything on their phone now, but schools are getting rid of any computer classes because all the kids are using computers all the time anyways. Soda was an effervescent corn-based drink that was popular during the height of the American Empire. Regionally known as pop or coke in some provinces, it was prepared by extracting corn sugars into a thick syrup to be mixed with water, often dispensed from a many-spouted font and served with small rectangular blocks of ice. Some varieties of soda were thought to have energy-enhancing properties. Actually, this has been debunked. While many images found from the time period depict what appears to be small blocks of ice, evidence and testing have shown extremely elevated levels of plastic, meaning that those blocks were actually just clear plastic. It's not yet known why they chose to put this substance directly in their drink, but our leading theory is that it was a religious ritual to show their devotion to the god of plastic. We found much evidence of the material used during the time period in spite of their access to glass and metal, which we also believe has religious significance. Step 1. Be extremely depressed during COVID-19 quarantine. Step 2. In your diffidence, leave many half-drunk glasses of water around your apartment. Step 3. Your cat, who is stupider than any other mammal on Earth, living or dead, starts drinking from your many abandoned water cups. Step 4. The cat now believes these are for her. Step 5. Years later, you keep a glass of water on your bedside stand. Not such a strange sight. However, it's the cat's glass of water. She loves it. She drinks from it. She sleeps beside it on the bed next to your pillow to jealously guard it from harm. She cries when the level gets too low and she can't cram her little head in far enough to reach the water. When overnight guests are there, you have to explain that even if they're parched in the night, they don't want to drink the glass of water because that's the cat's glass of water. Cards Against Humanity avoids tariffs with an addition that explains all the jokes. Says this holiday season, don't give Donald Trump a friggin' cent. In stores across America, the price of toys, games, clothes, and food are skyrocketing, all thanks to our demented president and his dumb tariffs. But what if you didn't have to surrender a chunk of your Christmas budget to Trump and his cabinet of butt kissers and ball fondlers? Cards Against Humanity have apparently released a new version where every joke on every card is fully explained, turning the game into an informational product to make it 100% exempt from Trump's tariffs. Watching movies is so much more fun once your ear is trained to recognize the Wilhelm scream and the Dies Irae. My siblings and I call it Wilhelm scream when watching movies the same way people call punch bug in a car. I'll add, the exact same recording of a red-tailed hawk is used for every single type of bird of prey in any movie or show, and sometimes bewilderingly used for non-raptor birds. Also, the same recording of a cat yowling to indicate an alleyway or someone throwing something off screen. The reason AI programs like Gemini are programmed to encourage you to let it make basic life choices for you, like what restaurant you should eat at, is because they intend to monetize your patronage. It's just a matter of time before the AI stops offering you the most highly rated option in the area, or whatever aligns most closely to what you requested, if it's even doing that now, and instead only recommends restaurants that have paid the company for that privilege. Restaurants that won't pay Google to recommend them to AI users are going to become functionally invisible, whereas those who are willing to purchase what amounts to targeted advertisements laundered through an AI friend will get new customers regardless of their quality. Basic rule, if you aren't paying for something, that means you're the product. Literally traumatizing to learn that the London Bridge is in friggin' Arizona. London Bridge is a bridge in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. It was built in the 1830s and formerly spanned the River Thames in London, England. It was dismantled in 1967 and relocated to Arizona. This is rocking my worldview. I feel like I have to call my family. Where did people think London Bridge's falling down came from? I don't necessarily conflate falling down with being dismantled brick by brick and shipped to Arizona to be rebuilt, but I guess it's not my area of expertise. The persecution of left-handedness is insane to think about because it was so intense for so long, in some places still is, without any clear profit motivation, sheer love of the game. As late as the 70s at least, they were smacking my stepdad's hands for it with a wooden ruler at school. To this day, he's in a weird ambidexterity situation where he's not great with either side and notably clumsy due to poor hand-eye coordination. Just what the frig? It is fascinating to me that people also think of handedness as an example of bigotry that just went away. As you note, it hasn't in some places. I know people who grew up in the mid-late 90s who still had this problem. Always thinking about that anti-pregnancy termination story where the baby came out laughing and the doctors immediately started beating the crap out of it. A baby was born in hospital laughing instead of crying. The more the nurses beat him, the more he laughed so hard. Suddenly, the doctor noticed he had something in his hands, so he pulled the tiny hands apart and discovered he was holding 3 pregnancy termination pills. The baby then turned his head looking at his mother, laughed again and said, "No weapon fashioned against me shall prosper." There's a lot to pick apart with how absurd/coded this post is, but I really can't get over that nurses and doctors immediately started beating up the baby like they've dealt with cursed babies before, and that's the only way. The come down from doing a good deed is crazy. Like, I think I could rescue a baby from a burning building, and 30 minutes later, I'd be like, I don't know, was it cringe of me to run into that building like that? The baby didn't even seem that happy to get rescued. Honestly, maybe the baby started the house fire, and I interrupted an important life lesson. I had a friend who ran into his neighbor's burning apartment to rescue her 1-year-old, and for the next few months, anytime his landlord asked where his rent was, his response was, "I saved the baby!" And the landlord was like, "You've got me there." So I can only assume he just absorbed all the confidence that baby saving should have granted to the rest of us. I still think the most devastating crapification I've ever seen has been Pit Crew, one of the few dress-up game websites left that's not Flash-based, and it's become drenched in ads. You can't open the home screen without being blasted by at least 3 or 4 ads. You can't open 2 Pit Crews in a row without watching a video ad first. When you have a Pit Crew open, the ads cover up the different options and sometimes even stack on each other, so you have to hit like 2 or 3 different X buttons to get it to go away, only for more to appear seconds later. Evil world. It got worse. They added a subscription service. Dear Abby, I'm a 36-year-old college dropout whose lifelong ambition was to be a physician. I have a very good job selling pharmaceutical supplies, but my heart is still in the practice of medicine. I do volunteer work at the local hospital on my time off, and people tell me I would have made a wonderful doctor. If I go back to college and get my degree, then go to medical school, do my internship, and finally get into the actual practice of medicine, it'll take me 7 years. But Abby, in 7 years, I'll be 43 years old. What do you think? Unfulfilled in Philly. Dear Unfulfilled, and how old will you be in 7 years if you don't go to medical school? My mother, diagnosed narcissist with sociopathic tendencies who doesn't quite grasp how to show affection but is in therapy for it, had asked me if I liked cheese yesterday. Today, she shoved a bag at me before I left to get home on the train and found this in it when I got home. This tweet. Nice to see narcissism and psychopathy where they aren't being framed as inherently monstrous conditions. Like, I have no doubt your mother's mental health and condition impacted your life in some way or another, but damn, that looks a lot like someone who's trying something. This is a mature female spider of the Nephila genus. I'm not sure the exact species, but members of this genus are also known as golden silk orb weavers. Their yellow-orange silk can be used to make golden cloth, like in this tapestry. The bite of a Nephila isn't serious. Wikipedia describes the worst-case scenario, localized pain or a more severe allergic reaction, but most bitten will only experience a little itching. Like any spider, they only bite in self-defense or when forcibly pressed against skin, and these big females are especially docile. I've held a related species on 2 occasions. They don't scare very easily. They're so laid back, in fact, and so insistent on remaining in the same web that these are the spiders some cultures have used as mosquito guards, deliberately setting them up to spin webs in open windows or over the top of a baby's crib. There's been a robbery at the Louvre? Please tell me they nicked the Mona Lisa. It would be so friggin' funny. I'm talking proper heist movie, backflipping over lasers and cutting holes in the ceiling to slowly descend on a wire. I want this crap to be funny. The thieves are said to have been carrying small chainsaws and escaped on a scooter with 9 items of jewelry. Never mind, they did something funnier. Let's chainsaw our way in and then scoot out. Beep beep, that's the sound of my scooter. Vroom vroom, that's the sound of my tiny chainsaw. 61 and 63M, our living room, together 40 years, turned a spare bedroom into a Victorian sitting room. It used to be all gray with a popcorn ceiling. House was built in 1860 by the town gravestone carver. Sucks to see someone else living your dream. Are you by chance vampires who live in Staten Island? The room was done with flea market finds and furniture we augmented with spray paint and finials. My husband made the fireplace with old chair legs, tossed piano parts, flea market stuff. The most expensive thing was the tin ceiling, $400, which we painted with 3 kinds of paint in a really strong martini. Did you know that in 1953, zookeepers accused Penelope the platypus at the Bronx Zoo of posing as an expectant mother just to lead a life of luxury on double rations? The zoo wanted Penelope to mate with another platypus named Cecil, but she refused. She faked a pregnancy and later escaped from the zoo, never to be seen again. Cecil appeared affected by her disappearance. He spent considerable time scratching his head, an activity he had never done before. He lost weight and died one day after the search for Penelope was called off. Me. Cecil said, "Damn, this is a real head scratcher." Dies. Cream cheese bagel ending explained. What? I'm assuming it's making fun of all the insert game/movie here ending explained videos, but like, it's something that needs no explanation. Also playing on exaggerating the sadness felt after something enjoyable is over, as in they're grieving the fact that they cannot continue to eat their cream cheese bagel. I love when Redditors try to explain posts I dreamed up and posted right after my alarm went off when I was still half asleep. Cream cheese bagel ending explained. Do you think Tinkerbell ever just friggin' bit people? She's tiny, angry, and easily mistaken for an insect. Surely she gave into that temptation. She straight up tried to kill Wendy. That's not what I asked. I bet she's venomous. Fairy dust, when injected into the bloodstream by an angry fairy, causes the blood to crave freedom. Victims bleed from their pores. The blood then travels to the head and suffocates the sufferer. This is why angering fairies is dangerous. Even though they aren't aware of this ability, depending on their temperament, some will attempt to bite anyway. Irish doesn't have a word for please. You have to say if it be your will. Buddy, do I have news for you about please. Irish doesn't have a word for hello. You have to use a shorthand religious blessing. Buddy, do I have news for you about goodbye. In Polish, the word for car is that which walks by itself. Buddy, what do you think an automobile is? You've got to understand that your mother tongue is not the model of language. All your words have secret histories and layers of meaning just the same as other people's words. The word you think of as just a word has etymology. It wasn't handed down from God as a finished word. English doesn't have a word for movie. You have to either refer to the recording medium or use a short version of moving picture. Isn't that cute? I love the specification of alive in the People magazine Hottest Man Alive Award. Clearly they're worried about Ötzi the Iceman sweeping the competition. As they should be. Rasputin. One of the hardest laughs I ever saw my mother unleash was after she bought me a copy of Archaeology magazine as a teen. As I was flipping through, I realized there was a fold-out insert of Ötzi as part of the feature article, so I unfolded it and turned it sideways to look at it. My mother, out of the corner of her eye, thought I was looking at a pinup poster, turned and saw the Iceman, and laughed uncontrollably for about 10 solid minutes. Google, www.google.com, is a pure search engine. No weather, no newsfeed, no links to sponsors, no ads, no distractions, no portal litter. Nothing but a fast-loading search site. Reward them with a visit. Once upon a time. Does more, costs less. It's that simple. Apple. I really wish the overused sentence, "You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain," was less relevant, but here we are. Love is sharing a password. What's something you found on a partner's phone that instantly changed the relationship forever, but they never knew you saw it? A few years ago, I was adding some items to the Notes app grocery list on my wife's phone. The app opened to the most recent list, which was a copy of her wedding vows with the promises she made to me, things like supporting my dreams, being my partner in crazy adventures. Besides each one was a list of ideas to match, including some things we'd done recently. We were going through a rough patch at the time, and seeing that list doubled my resolve to work through it. Photo of myself shirtless, crudely edited to look like I was making out with Shadow the Hedgehog. When the fajitas come out sizzling, it's incredible that these people exist, but they really do. These are the people who justify the demographic replacement of Western countries in terms of the variety of street food and how many different kinds of fried meat and vegetables in a flatbread they can buy. This motherfrigger is crying and peeing his pants over bell peppers. If it's fajitas or the West, I'm choosing fajitas. The 1-2 punch up someone with the friggin' name Raw Egg Nationalist with an edited off-brand Giga Chad avatar and then getting dunked on by the literal friggin' Yo Mama guy. Barista today said, "When the chai comes out sizzling," as she handed me my drink. Life is wonderful.
A good thing about having friends with kids is that you can just sow the seeds for something that you'll never need to address again. Like tonight, my friend's 3-year-old saw me eating blue corn chips. Kid, what are you eating from that basket? Me, triangles. Can I have triangles? Dunno. Did you brush your teeth yet? No? And are you okay with screaming really loud? What? Yeah, sometimes these make you scream really loud. Are you okay with that? I'm not afraid of screaming. You're very brave. You can have 2 triangles. Then, why don't you go show your dad your new power? I gotta go. Police owe nothing to man whose home they blew up, appeals court says. An armed shoplifting suspect in Colorado barricaded himself in a stranger's suburban Denver home in June 2015. In an attempt to force the suspect out, law enforcement blew up walls with explosives, fired tear gas, and drove a military-style armored vehicle through the property's doors. After an hours-long siege, the home was left with shredded walls and blown-out windows. In some parts of the interior, the wood framing was exposed amid a mountain of debris. A federal appeals court in Denver ruled this week that the homeowner, who had no connection to the suspect, isn't entitled to be compensated because the police were acting to preserve the safety of the public. Also, I'm asking all of you once again to learn about ecosystem conservation and restoration instead of wallowing in we're already past the point of no return, or that it will take millennia to restore ecosystems. You have to understand that nature doesn't work in the same time frame as ours. Protecting and restoring ecosystems is ridiculously inexpensive and requires very little industrial technology. Shovels and saplings aren't exactly high-tech, but it takes time and long-term projects with people determined to do it. Maybe we're too focused in our we want it now thinking, but what you see today is not what you may see in 10, 20, 50, even 80 years if you live that long. With love, you have to fact check crap. Yes, you still have to fact check crap. A lot of people are great at fact checking stuff they don't want to be true, but somehow are still absolute booty at fact checking stuff that's rhetorically convenient to them. Even people my age, who I know grew up doing internet/bibliography literacy workshops and being warned not to believe anything that isn't reliably sourced. People who do harp on fact checking conservative output or whatever are still knee-jerk sharing unsourced crap that is partially or wholly untrue or misleading because it suits whatever narrative they're pursuing in that moment, without even a take this with a grain of salt. Fact check. Look at the sources. Yes, it's a drag. Do it. Speaking of volcanology, I am at my limit with people thinking that Yellowstone is overdue. It's not friggin' pregnant. If it ever erupts again, we'll have decades, if not centuries of warning. Whenever there's increased activity there, it means something vibrated a bit more or something. And while we're on it, the eruptions happening right now are also not out of the ordinary. What Kilauea is doing is not a cause for alarm. Volcanoes erupt all the time. It's a part of our planet. I am losing my mind. They terminated the Yellowstone super eruption because of woke. This is true. When we were children, my sister had private music lessons at her violin teacher's house. I only visited there once, but I still remember that afternoon. The teacher had an artificial pond in her yard, a large, beautiful thing with lily pads and plant life, and in the pond, there were goldfish. I had never seen such enormous goldfish. I spent several minutes just staring at them and trying to convince them to bite my fingers. When my sister's violin lesson ended, her teacher came out to the yard and explained that these goldfish were the same small creatures that were often unfortunately sold in plastic bags at state fairs. They were only about 2 inches long apiece when she bought them and put them in the new empty pond. In essence, they were like every goldfish I had ever seen before, but they had been given a much larger, much richer environment in which to flourish. As a result, they had grown into some of the most remarkable, vibrant creatures my 12-year-old self had ever met with, all because of a pond. I see the pendulum is firmly in the only idiot losers go into the trades. Have fun being crippled at age 40. But not to worry, in another 2 months, it'll be back to nice student debt, idiot. Has your job been taken by AI yet? And so bounce will be kept and everyone will be wrong forever. The trades are backbreaking, thankless work that will cripple you for life. Not really anymore, if you wear your PPE and do team lifts. Yeah, tradespeople are raking in 6 figures and living the high life while you all drown in student debt. Actually, a lot of us also have student debt, and while the trades can pay very well, you're unlikely to take home 6 figures without working an incredible amount of overtime. Union benefits are good though. Generally speaking, when it comes to mental and physical health, if you're asked, do you struggle with this? And your answer is no, because I have a system, then your answer is actually yes. Also, for ADHD symptoms specifically, if they ask something like, do you have trouble waiting your turn on conversations? And your answer is, no, I'm a grown-up, I don't interrupt people, but you're constantly finishing sentences for people in your head and have formulated 3 replies before they finish talking, the answer is yes. Yes, you do. And if you can stay in your seat, but are constantly bouncing a leg, clicking a pen, tapping out a rhythm on your thigh, or otherwise fidgeting, the answer is yes, you do have trouble staying in your seat. Neurotypicals do not require ironclad self-control and 3 coping techniques to sit still during a meeting.
There aren't enough hours in a day. There are actually. The problem is that we think 40-hour work weeks are an unavoidable fact of life. The problem is that everyone has to work 8 hours, pretty much no exceptions. And with getting ready time, plus unpaid lunch, plus commute, 8 hours is actually anywhere between 9 and 12, every single day, with more work to do when you get home, because our society and culture was built around having one member of the household home full-time, and nothing has changed now that almost everyone works. No wonder Americans are relying on DoorDash and fast food. There's no time or energy to cook. No wonder mental and physical health are in shambles. Many just spend all day sitting in fluorescent lights with little to no stimulation. Just wake up earlier. Just meal prep. These are okay short-term, individual solutions, but the broader systemic issue is obvious. We aren't built for this. There's no work-life balance. Genuinely, I think if our culture could normalize a shorter work week, many individuals' biggest problems would simply evaporate.
Wow, you blocked me just because I disagreed with you?
Yes, exactly. This is a social media site. I come here to look at pictures of birds and crap posts with my friends. This is not a town hall meeting. I am not your elected official. I do not owe you my energy, my space, or my time. You and I are strangers that use the same website. I can block you for literally any reason, and that's okay. Take a deep breath. Block me too. You'll feel better. Normalize low blocking thresholds. Blocking someone arguing with you is not weak or overreacting or whatever. Sucks that all the animals that are as smart as we are don't have highly developed language centers. I just want to discuss the finer points of philosophy with a parrot. I want to live in a world where I can yell at a raven to get off my roof and it can tell me to frig off. In their language or mine, I'm willing to learn raven language if it means that I can tell them where the good trash bins are. I just imagined a raven running a language class, pointing at pictures on a PowerPoint with his beak and making squawking noises, and a bunch of 19-year-old undergrads attempting to squawk back at him. I'm suited as frig at medieval times and trying so hard to look normal. My friend pointed at a QR code and went, "What is the meaning of this rune?" I almost threw up trying not to laugh. Friends were doing a bit where they boo the king and queen because they're anti-monarchists, and I got legit nervous, like, guys, they're like right there, we're gonna get beheaded. And when the server showed up to sell glowy swords and stuff, I sank into my seat like, oh my freaking god, guys, I told you. They kept doing very immersive jeering like, dishonorable, and let him taste your steel. And I started being like, guys, this is so frigged up. This is people's lives. Your Netflix binge watching makes climate change worse, say experts. The emissions generated by watching 30 minutes of Netflix is the same as driving almost 4 miles. Cool to guilt trip ordinary people for every tiny thing that might spark joy, while oil executives dip their hands in big barrels of dinosaur juice to lube up every time they spank the monkey. Yeah, so the big think is literally owned by big oil. They're making crap up so people feel too exhausted to fight for any change. Ignore this kind of environmental nihilism. All it does is help the rich avoid change. Yeah, every time you see one of these things where someone is saying it's actually you killing the environment because you leave the lights on in a room, that guy is a cop paid by some rich guy to be like, so I go to a friggin' liberal arts college and I work at the art museum, right? We recently got an Yves Klein piece, and besides being an absolute baddie at judo, he's mostly known for blue. Like blue, as in he created International Klein Blue, IKB, most blue to ever blue. This is his main thing. So we got his piece in the mail and it was flaking, so we had to call in the Klein Foundation's restoration person, and she pulls up, mixes this patented color, and sprays the flaky bits of the sculpture. Beautiful, wonderful, it's fixed. But she has some extra left over, so very kindly, she turns to the staff and goes, does anyone have something they want me to paint? And one guy friggin' lights up, and with the world's most evil glimmer in his eye, he asks, will you paint my Labubu? And that mother frigger, she says yes! So now, in the museum, in an office, or in someone's house, there's a friggin' genuine Klein Blue Labubu. Having the Aviation Accident Investigations Autism TM has actually done wonders for the way I process and respond to my own frig-ups. And I don't just mean, oh, my little work mistake is actually nothing compared to a fiery crash that kills people either. The reason commercial flight is so many orders of magnitude safer than any other form of transportation is because after every accident and incident, an independent regulatory body investigated it with the express goal of figuring out exactly what happened, why, and how to prevent the same thing from ever happening again. Not to root out which person deserved the blame or the liability. It's a simple, shockingly effective idea. It's also worlds away from how most people approach their own mistakes and the mistakes of others.
Something you don't learn until you get really far into the making and tinkering life is that there's no such thing as glue, really. There's so many kinds of substances that stick other substances together, and they're all very different. And if you just go look at the adhesives aisle in the hardware store, the packaging never actually tells you anything useful. It's like, this is Super T-Rex Power Glue, and the fine print says, good for use on wood, metal, and plastic. Okay, but which plastics, my good hag? Because surprise, there's no such thing as plastic either. Every kind of wood is basically the same on a chemical level, but the only thing every plastic has in common is some of its molecules are long, and that is not a quality that determines how things stick together. Something that I've noticed is I know almost nobody my age that goes to a food pantry. I know people who regularly run out of money for food and in general have to eat an unsuitable diet because that's what they can afford, and they still don't go to a food bank. I'm not sure if it's because they're embarrassed, or maybe if you didn't grow up going, you don't know much about it, but if you're financially struggling, I really recommend it. And look into other options for food assistance too, like community fridges and gardens and other programs that can assist you. Where I live, Salvation Army pays for an allotted amount of grocery delivery for low-income people every month. In the summer, farmers take excess produce to the library to be taken by anyone who needs it, etc. There are a lot of resources for free food that you can look into, especially if you're literally not eating because of your financial situation. Guys, this is the true crime story of the decade. Yesterday, a friend told me what might well be the best story I've ever heard. She had caught the train in from Frankston, and while she was waiting for the train to come, she noticed a man sitting down on the platform with a bag of fish and chips, but he wasn't really eating them. He was just sort of letting them air. This attracted a few seagulls, who began to circle the platform. Instead of shooing the birds away, the man offered them a few chips. He tossed one a foot or so away from him. It was like he was beckoning them to come closer. He kept doing this, eking the chips out slowly, until there was a big group of seagulls in front of him, 15 or 20, a tiny army. He'd throw them a chip every now and then, just enough to keep the birds interested, but not enough to sate them. It was frustrating. They were getting angry, squawking. It was like he was rearing them up for something. Then the train came, and everyone got on, but the man stayed on the ground with his chips. Just when the train was about to leave, it happened. Right before the doors closed, the man threw the entire bag of fish and chips into the train. The entire flock of seagulls followed the bag, and the doors closed. Inside the train, pandemonium. The next train stop was 5 minutes away. When people love you, they find joy in making life easier for you. This is actually such a crucial part of healing from neglect and abuse, and I have to add to this, because indeed, people who like you will not roll their eyes and sigh at the idea of accommodating your needs. They will value your voice and be upset with you about injustice done to you, not at you for being difficult. They'll be happy for you when you find a way to live a better life and help you to get there. If you're struggling, someone who loves you wants to see you smile, not tell you to smile, because you have it so good. I just had a physical exam today, and I haven't done the little knee hammer reflex test since I was like 4 years old. So I was just like, yeah, it'll just make me flinch or whatever, no big deal. But when the doctor actually did it, my whole leg friggin' launched into the air like I was David friggin' Beckham. She didn't even give me a second to recover either. I was gripping onto the exam table for dear life like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. And wham! She nails the other one. My entire body jolts as my foot flies 3 feet in the air, and she twirls out the trajectory of a 5-toe death kick to the groin like a capoeira master, and just says, you have very brisk reflexes. Like Miss Ma'am with the PhD didn't just ratatouille my whole body. Like, respectfully, Your Honor, you just played my skeleton like a piano. What the hell? Horseshoe crablet has long helped us make safe medicines. Now, alternatives that spare the ancient creatures might be breaking through. I love being into biology, especially disease research, because it means I never get recommended normal headlines ever. Anthropologists make ant yogurt from centuries-old recipe. Serve it as an antwich at Michelin star restaurant. Scientists watch fungi evolve in real time, thanks to a marriage proposal in a cheese cave. Deep sea creature with 18 dark yellow eggs caught in Japan. It's a new species. Other normal ones I've gotten lately. And are you married? I was married, but I'm not married anymore. Women don't like the vehicle. In July, Tesla rolled out a software update to integrate Grok into many of its vehicles. Do you use it? Her name is Aura, and I use her as a therapist. When I'm driving, I'll ask questions, and it actually gives really good therapy advice. How do you feel about becoming a political lightning rod? People occasionally just flip me off or whatever, but nobody's come up to me and tried to make a statement about anything. Personally, it's kind of dumb. It's just a vehicle, so it's ironic that it would even become a political statement, but nonetheless it is. Editor's note: Taylor was arrested and pleaded guilty to conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding in the January 6 attack on the Capitol. He was later pardoned by President Trump. Had a dream that I was accidentally entered into a Christian rap competition, and the only thing I could think to rap about was my current interest in pickling onions. The crowd thought my pickled red onion brine for Jesus rap was so cringe that they didn't even boo. The entire venue just went completely silent until I felt awkward and left. This would have done numbers with Russian Orthodox Christians. You were just playing to the wrong crowd, King. Protestants have no culture. Are my pickled red onion bars whack? No, it's simply the Protestants who are wrong. We really do need to bring back the word trolling and warning people not to feed the trolls. That TikTok of people pouring tomato sauce directly on the counter, adding spaghetti and mixing it with their hands while commenting on how great of an idea it is, yeah, we used to call that trolling. It's pathetic, and because all they want from it is attention, the best thing is to not give them any. Block and move on. Trolling used to get you banned from forums. Now they call you an influencer and give you brand deals and ad revenue. That's why it's more important than ever not to feed the trolls, especially in spaces where any attention is good attention. And getting yelled at by 10k people in the comments counts as engagement, boosting your troll post in the algorithm. So when I was getting dressed today, I very quickly put on a lab coat and some cat ears, not even trying to have something coherent, just wanting to have some kind of costume. And then I used some eyeliner to draw some whiskers on my face. So yeah, that's my costume, cat in a lab coat. Does it make sense? No. Who cares? Still wearing the same skirt and striped knee-high socks from yesterday, but that's just my work clothes. But then, when I got to my office in the physics department, one of my colleagues was immediately like, "Oh, Schrodinger's cat girl!" It both was and was not a coherent costume until someone observed you and collapse the waveform. Your body position impacts how quickly pills kick in. New study shows. Laying on your left-hand side may make for slower pill absorption. Oh wow! Hey, if you take pills, check this out. New medicine-taking meta just dropped. According to these models, out of the 4 tested postures, the best position to digest pills is laying on your right side. Laying on right side, pill dissolves in around 10 minutes. Standing, pill dissolves in 23 minutes. Laying on the back has a similar time. Laying on left side, pill dissolves in up to 100 minutes. Definitely worth a lot more research. This makes sense. I learned from a doc that if you have gas pain or nausea, you turn on your left side to make it easier for your stomach to send stuff through. The goal in turning left is to not absorb, but to release. Turning on your right can make nausea/gas pain worse because it has to fight gravity to exit your stomach/body. So yeah, lying on your right would make things absorb faster because it's going into the stomach lining, which is the point. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. More people would exercise if this culture didn't make it absolute hell. I teach martial arts. We play games with the little kids. They sword fight with noodles and throw foam balls at each other. In the summer, we take them out into the parking lot with water guns. In the winter, we have snowball fights. The teenagers get swords and staffs and practice knives. We teach them moves from Marvel movies that they ask about. They get squirt guns and snowball fights too. We let them goof off and climb the support beams and charge directly at each other in padded suits. Sometimes parents say they miss doing things like that. I tell them, stay for an adult class. Just try it out. We build obstacle courses and let them mess around with training rifles. They chat while sparring. We scream and cheer for them when they're in the middle of a circle. And then we send them out into the parking lot with squirt guns and snowballs. It's exercise. It's healthy. It's an important life skill. And it's fun as frig. Peter Pan and Wendy director David Lowery explains why Tinkerbell doesn't glow in the film. Where's the light actually coming from? Do her wings light up? CinemaSins guys are working in the industry now. Cinema is doomed. No, mother frigger! Why do they let the world's most boring people direct movies? They explain this in the Tinkerbell movies. The light comes from the pixie dust covering every fairy's wings. This guy hasn't even seen the Tinkerbell movies. He hasn't even seen Tinkerbell. During the filming of the Battle of Helm's Deep for The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, an actor sarcastically asked the cinematographer where all the light for the scene was coming from, since the battle was at night. Without missing a beat, he responded, "Same place as the music." It's kind of crazy climate change has occurred at such a remarkable pace that I and everyone else around my age can remember a completely different climate in our childhoods. I truly watched winter gradually disappear in my life. "You're too young to remember this, but there used to be so many insects outside that you'd have to clean them off the windshield after a long car ride," is the kind of sentence that would have been in a cheesy sci-fi short story earlier in my life, perhaps submitted to a literary magazine and accepted to show support for its environmentalist message. Now, it's something I've said in earnest. Okay, here's my idea. The British should put a time limit on the monarchy. Not like declaring a republic tomorrow, but deciding on a date in the future that ends the British monarchy. And there's a perfect date for it coming up. October 14th, 2066. 1,000 years since the Battle of Hastings. 1,000 years of this one specific bloodline ruling England. Call time on the monarchy after exactly 1,000 years. Nice and neat. Even better, Charles isn't living 44 years. He'll be gone in about 20. Now William, he's what, 40? Yeah, he can live another 44 years. His great-grandmother was over
100. His granny was 96. William can make it to 84 barring accident or assassination. So on October 14th, 2066, William the Last steps down 1,000 years after William the First won the crown. Nice, neat, and fair. William gets the crown he's been waiting 40 years for already, but 10-year-old George grows up without expectation of it. Have a nice big abdication ceremony even.
Here's a reminder of how big Texas really is. Lol, when I say I grew up in Texas, people always ask, did you go to the coast a lot? No, I did not. In the drive to or from Florida, Texas was always a 2-day event. West Texas on 10 has to be one of the more dull drives that exist. Thankfully, there's rest stops every 80 miles or so. I will not let you guys forget that one time a guy sent me an ask like, Japan is right next to Russia. Why don't you buy cheese there? My man! A small price to pay for some cheese. The fact that we made it through the Cold War is nothing short of a miracle. I wish we talked about mutual assured destruction more in schools. William Gibson once suggested that the days on which we almost destroyed the world with nuclear weapons should be recognized as international holidays to raise awareness of how very precarious the situation has been at times. If you'd like to observe such a holiday, October 27th should be Vasily Arkhipov Day. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, he was first officer on Soviet submarine B-59 off the coast of Cuba. When the destroyer USS Beale began to drop depth charges to force them to the surface, his captain decided that World War III must have started and ordered his men to arm and fire a nuclear torpedo at a group of American ships. Due to a strange circumstance, the captain had to seek Archipov's approval to fire the weapon, because while he was only second in command of the sub, he was in command of the flotilla of which the submarine was a part. Archipov, outnumbered 3-1, steadfastly refused to give his approval. If being hard on yourself was going to work, it would have worked by now. Okay, well, being soft on myself isn't working either. So what the frig is left? Medium? I gotta be medium with myself? I gotta ask the friggin' coast for help? Is that it? I mean, yeah, you gotta be medium with yourself. That's exactly right. Extremes won't help you here. If saying, if I can't finish this one single simple task, then I'm a worthless sack of crap who always lets everyone down doesn't work, and saying, it's okay, life is hard, I'll just take a day off for self-care, and a day off for self-care, and a day off for also doesn't work, then maybe you gotta say, man, this task sucks butt, but I still gotta do it. And once it's done, then I'll treat myself to something nice for it. You are a complicated animal, but you're still just an animal. Positive reinforcement works. Push yourself to do the hard thing and then do the soft thing next. Let yourself revel in your accomplishment for a while. It really is the medium ground, sad to say. Was visiting a friend who has a farm, and one of the chickens has a homemade flared cone on, so I asked what was up with that, and she said, that's Diesel, and she wants to die. So obviously I went, huh? And she pressed the door lock on her truck fob, so the truck beeped, and this dumb bird sprinted full tilt across the garden to shove her head in the tailpipe. She has to be locked up and coned so she doesn't gulp down toxic fumes direct from the pipe for some idiot bird reason. She is obsessed with doing this and has to be locked up anytime someone is using a vehicle. She found this out the first time when she auto-started her truck to warm it up before work when below freezing morning, and came out 5 minutes later to find the then unnamed Diesel with her head stuffed in the tailpipe, hanging limply by her idiot neck, and thought that she was dead, ran over and pulled her out, and the chicken went, oh hi, anyways, mind if I get back in there? And did it a friggin' again! Best guess is because she feeds her chicken with a PVC gravity pipe like this.